Oh, it's Jinder's Gear Reviews. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Jinder's Gear Reviews with I, Jinder, and some gear that I'm reviewing. Today we're looking at this mysterious beast, the TFPRO P3 Pro Channel. Now, as you can see from this, it's basically a microphone preamplifier with an optical compressor and a phase active equalizer. Now, this thing was originally known and marketed as the Joe Meek VC3Q. It's got a fairly small footprint, nice little desktop pre. I owned a Joe Meek VC3Q, which I used on quite a lot of the guitar and vocal parts on my album Crumbs of Comfort from 2012. You can dive straight into a track called You Don't Have to Be Alone, which was almost entirely recorded through a VC3Q. If you want to hear what it sounds like on a record after it's been sort of mixed and mastered and whatnot. Basically, PMI bought out the Joe Meek brand from Ted Fletcher, who was the guy who invented all the stuff and started making it in his shed in Devon, I believe. TFPRO is Ted Fletcher's company post the PMI buyout, where he kept hold of some of the designs, such as this, which is identical to the VC3Q, except it's red and not green, and it has a different name on it. And he carried on manufacturing these after PMI bought the Joe Meek name. I believe it was PMI anyway. You might want to Google that. So today, for reference, we're running through a Sontronics STC1 small diaphragm condenser into this, and let's talk you through. Over here on the left, you have the input, which is your gain level. Obviously, if you're looking at this, you know what the input knob does. We have an optical compressor, which has a compression level, an attack and release, and a phase active equalizer, which is just a British style EQ that goes all the way from 80 hertz down in the boots to 1.8K in the mids up to 8K in the high end. And then an output knob, which is basically your output level. There's a 5 LED sort of VU type thing there, which shows you what's going on in terms of what's coming in and going out and whatnot. The real scoop with this thing is the compressor. Now it's an opto compressor. It's a very 60s style, soft knee, kind of a squidgy, pillowy compressor, which does have its uses. I like the compressor in this thing for certain tasks. I sold my VC3Q when I was skint a few years ago, and I've been looking for one ever since. Now, these TFPRO units are few and far between, but they tend to fall through the cracks a little bit on eBay, because most people go looking for a little green box with Joe Meek written on the front, and they don't associate TFPRO necessarily, unless they're in the know, with the Joe Meek product. So these can be had for very little money. I didn't pay much for this at all. I think I got a real steal on this. So let's look at the compression side of it. You've got your compression level. As you can see, as I turn it up, the little green "I'm doing something" light starts to flicker. You get up to 6 or 7 on the dial, and you can really hear it starting to squish the peaks of my speech. And we go all the way and dime it, and that's a pretty hard sort of compression. So let's just back it up. I couldn't tell you what the ratio of this compressor is, or whether that's adjustable via dip switches or trim pots inside it. I have not been inside it, and I couldn't tell you that. That's something that you can probably find on the Gear Sluts forum or something similar. So you've got your attack and release. Now, I find that this is most musical and probably more modern sounding if you keep the attack and release all the way down. But as this is a character compressor, let's try turning the attack up a little bit so it comes in a bit later, and turn the release up a little bit. You can get a full second of actually more than a second of release time. So let's go all the way on that, and all of a sudden we are pretty much under a blanket with regard to that kind of hard compression. And as I stop speaking, you can just hear the room coming in again a little bit. So let's The most extreme is short attack and long release with full, full sort of compression setting. Nobody's realistically going to use it in that way, but the option is there. So if we turn it down like that, where you've got it's just nipping the peaks. If we turn it down, I'll just sing a little kind of little line from a Jeff Lang song. I think I'll sing Indian Pacific on a dead street track. See, that's with the compression all the way down. It is engaged, but it's all the way down. So let's turn it up to 1/4 and I'll sing that again. Indian Pacific on a dead street track. You can just hear it coming in there, nipping at the peaks a little bit, up to sort of 5/2. Indian Pacific on a dead street track. See, that's really doing some work there. Up just to about 5 past. Indian Pacific on a dead straight track. Go a little more. Indian Pacific on a dead straight track. See, I'm not really altogether sure who's going to use the more extreme settings on this, but if you want that very squashed 60s, yes, Joe Meek kind of sound, like with the stomping on Have I the Right and that kind of thing, and the more Joe Meek, of course, was the progenitor, the inventor of pretty much of the use of compression in audio recording, and his records that he produced were sort of defined by this kind of real kind of pumping, awesome compression, and this will kind of get you there. But the problem is that with a very sort of soft knee, kind of slightly laggy optical compressor in that style, in modern recording, you end up with a very clean sounding track with this this sort of slightly odd anachronistic compression doing its thing. If you use it in the same way that Joe Meek did, it stands out like a sore thumb in the very clean world of recording with DAWs and stuff. But it has a place, and you can dress up a recording, a modern recording in a DAW with all manner of grungealizers and sort of, things to make things more kind of analog sounding, and this can be useful for that. But it's a nice microphone preamp, just on its own merits. I like it on guitar. I don't necessarily use it on vocals. I'm spoiled because I use an LA2A clone, actually a Clark Technic KT2A, which is not an expensive compressor. I think I paid about $275 for mine, but it's wonderful. I bought it with the intention of having it modified to get closer to the LA2A specs, but in actual fact, it's just absolutely great as it is. This has a fairly basic 3-band British EQ, but my main channel strip, my main pre, is a Daking Mic Pre EQ, which has the 4-band Trident A-range style EQ, which is massively powerful, musical, wonderful. I can't say enough good things about the Daking, but that's for another review. But this is great for just grabbing and putting down some demos, and I've used this stuff, the Joe Meek stuff, and this on records. They're very good at what they do for that particularly characterful 60s style thing, and it's very good on guitars. I do like this on acoustic guitar. You can really get, especially for like fingerstyle stuff, if you want something that's really kind of that really pops, you can get that with the optical compression on this. Now let's have a look at the back panel here. It has a mixing insert as well, so you can use it, patch it into your rack gear, which is quite nice. It's got a line level input, so you can run guitars and basses and all that kind of stuff in. Mix in if you're reamping or anything like that, or you want to sort of. I probably wouldn't use this as a mastering compressor, like a limiter, but I suppose if you wanted to run a mix through it and do it that way, you probably could. It has 2 TRS outputs. There's no XLR output on it, but I've never found that a problem. I have various XLR to TRS and TRS to XLR leads. Has phantom power, switchable at the rear. And all in all, it's got a nice sort of heavyweight thing going on with it. It feels like it would still be here after some sort of nuclear holocaust. And as much as I adore the sound of my Daking pre, this feels sturdier, which is surprising. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for this as like probably a second pre in your arsenal. It's always good to have something with a bit of character. I would not buy this looking for the be all and end all of pre amplifiers or channel strips, but it's very good. I would say it's definitely worth your time. So that's it, the TFPRO P3 Pro Channel. Worth having a look if you can track one down on eBay, or just go for it and pay a little bit more and get the Joe Meek VC3Q, the green one. There's a lot more of those around, and they do exactly the same thing in exactly the same way. So thank you very much for watching. My name's Jinder, and please like and subscribe for more gear reviews and so on, and I will see you soon. Cheers.